My mother-in-law stood in my kitchen and said 5 words that changed everything. I don't care about the child. She was talking about Mia, my 9-year-old daughter. And she said it loud enough that Mia heard every single word. 7 days later, their lawyer called in a panic about what I'd signed. But I'm getting ahead of myself. It was 2 weeks before Christmas in Boston. Mia was still in her school uniform, trying to tape a paper snowflake to the sliding door. Carol, my mother-in-law, stood in my kitchen like she owned it, holding a mug she didn't ask for. Brian, my husband, leaned against the fridge with that face he always made when his mom was about to say something mean. Carol looked at Mia and didn't even lower her voice. I don't care about the child. Mia's hands stopped midair. The tape drooped. She didn't cry. She just blinked like she was trying to make sense of what she'd heard. Brian didn't correct his mother. He didn't even look at Mia. He looked at me. Then Carol slid a manila folder across my counter. This needs to be signed tonight. Brian finally spoke. Hannah, just sign it. You don't need to read all that. That's when I realized they weren't talking to me like a partner. They were talking to me like an obstacle. And that's when I decided I would sign something. Just not what they thought. The first rule in my house used to be simple: Mia comes first. I said it early. I said it calmly. I said it like it was normal. But Carol had been testing that rule for months. She showed up early to dinners and criticized Mia's clothes. She pushed for one-on-one outings with Mia without me. When I said no, Brian accused me of making things tense. The worst came when Brian picked Mia up from school. I found Mia sitting outside on the front steps, cheeks pink from the cold. What happened? Inside, Brian was scrolling his phone. She didn't want to come in. Mia's voice was small. He was on the phone with Grandma. I turned to Mia. What did she say? Mia's eyes went shiny. She said, I'm lucky you married Brian because now I have a real family and I shouldn't mess it up. Brian rolled his eyes. That's not what she meant. It did hurt, Mia whispered. Brian looked at her for half a second, then back to me. See, this is why I didn't want you to make rules. It makes everyone tense. Brian had found a way to make harm sound like my overreaction. Then came cookie day at Carol's house. She handed Brian her phone with a smile. Brian cleared his throat. My mom found a financial advisor. He does family planning. Carol leaned in. Brian told me you inherited something after your first husband passed. Any money you got because of your situation should benefit your current household, not just your child. Mia's shoulders hunched like she could make herself smaller. I said, Mia's father's assets are for Mia. Carol smiled without warmth. We'll see. By the time that Tuesday 2 weeks before Christmas rolled around, I had learned the pattern. Carol controlled through help. Brian controlled through calm. Mia absorbed everything, then tried to wring herself out in private. And then Carol brought the folder. It looked official. Tabs, sticky notes, a law firm header. What is this? I asked. Carol's smile was thin. Just some paperwork. A power of attorney and a few updates to your accounts. Brian's voice slid in smooth. It's routine. If anything happens to you, I need to be able to handle things. I kept my tone even. If something happens to me, Mia's guardian is already designated. Carol's eyes narrowed. We're not talking about custody. We're talking about money. Mia was at the table with markers. She paused, listening. Brian leaned closer. We're behind on a couple things. This will help us consolidate. I stared at him. Behind on what things? He didn't answer. Not in front of Mia. Carol lifted her chin. She doesn't need to be involved. I asked Carol, why are you here with this? Carol's smile widened. Because Brian said you're not the smartest with paperwork. He said you'll sign what you need to sign if we present it properly. Brian didn't flinch. He just said, Mom, don't say it like that. Mia's chair scraped back. She stood quiet and walked upstairs without a word. My hands stayed on the counter. Brian, did you tell her that? Brian's eyes flicked toward the stairs. Hannah, You're making it sound evil. We're a family. Carol tapped the folder. Sign tonight. We need it before the holidays. I looked at the signature tabs, yellow flags that screamed urgency. Then I looked at Brian, who wouldn't meet my eyes for more than a second. I nodded once. Okay. Carol's shoulders relaxed like she'd won something. And that was the moment I stopped arguing out loud and started planning in silence. I didn't sign the folder that night. After Mia fell asleep, Brian tried again. Let's just get it done, he said. I sat on the edge of the bed. Tell me what you're behind on. He exhaled. Credit cards, some personal loans, and I took out a loan to cover Mom's roof. I stared. You borrowed money for your mom's roof? She needed help. And you didn't tell me. He said it like a complaint. You would have freaked out. I kept my voice flat. So your solution is to have me sign a power of attorney over my assets. Brian leaned forward, softer. Babe, it's not like that. It's just for convenience. I flipped through the folder. Dense paragraphs, legal language, durable power of attorney, financial accounts, real property, trusts. My spine went cold. Why is there a trust section? Brian's eyes sharpened. Because you have one. I held his gaze. Mia has one. Brian's voice dropped. Hannah, we're married. It affects our household. I felt my hands stay steady. Mia's trust is not household money. Brian's nostrils flared. You're acting like I'm a stranger. He looked at the folder, then at me. My mom is right. You're not that smart with this stuff. That's why we're helping. It wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It was casual. And that casualness is what made it dangerous. The next morning, Brian called while I was driving Mia to school. He didn't say hello to Mia. He said, Hannah, I told my mom you'd sign today. Mia stared out the window, jaw tight. I'm taking Mia to school. Brian's tone sharpened. You always have an excuse. Mia's voice came out careful. Mom doesn't have excuses. She has stuff. Brian paused, then laughed. See, she's learning manipulation from you. Mia's cheeks flushed. She whispered, I didn't. I cut in, calm. Don't talk to her like that. Brian sighed. Put the kid away from the phone. This is adult business. I said, we'll talk later, and hung up. That afternoon, Brian and Carol were already home, waiting. Brian said, Hey, Mia, go upstairs. We're doing paperwork. Mia's voice was quiet but firm. I don't want Grandma here. Carol's smile vanished. Excuse me? Mia's hands clenched around her backpack straps. You said you don't care about me. The kitchen went still. Brian stood abruptly. Mia, that's enough. You don't speak to my mother that way. Mia's eyes filled. I didn't speak to her. I repeated her. Brian's face darkened. Upstairs. Now. Mia looked at me like she was waiting for me to choose her out loud. I said, Mia, go wash your hands and start your homework. I'll be up in a minute. She nodded once and walked away slowly, each step heavy. Carol leaned toward Brian. See, she's disrespectful. That child is a problem. Brian didn't correct her. He just looked at me. Sign. Let's not drag this out. Carol opened the folder to a new page. This one gives Brian the authority to manage the trust and any distributions. My voice stayed steady. No. Carol's expression hardened. Hannah, don't be stupid. The trust is money sitting there doing nothing. Brian can invest it. It's Mia's, I said. Carol's eyes were flat. I already told you. I don't care about the child. I care about family stability. Brian nodded. We need it. I need it. I stared at him. For what? He swallowed. We're trying to buy a bigger house and I promised Mom I'd help her with her mortgage refinancing. They weren't asking me to sign paperwork. They were asking me to hand my daughter's future to people who openly didn't care if she got hurt. I slid the folder back. I'm not signing today. Brian's face tightened. Yes, you are. I stood. No, I'm not. Carol's eyes flashed. Then you'll regret it. Brian stepped closer and lowered his voice. My wife is not so smart. She will sign what we need. He said it like he was quoting himself, like he was proud. I looked toward the stairs where Mia's footsteps had stopped. I nodded once, slow. Okay. Brian exhaled, relieved. Carol's shoulders relaxed. I walked upstairs and sat on the edge of Mia's bed. She was doing math problems with shaky pencil lines. Are you going to sign? I kept my voice soft. I'm going to handle it. Mia's eyes lifted to mine. Will I be okay? I put my hand over hers, steady. Yes. Then I went to my closet and pulled out the binder I kept hidden behind winter scarves. The one with Mia's trust documents. The one Brian didn't know I updated last year. I didn't feel angry. I felt clear. On Thursday morning, I drove Mia to school like everything was normal. At drop-off, Mia held my hand longer than usual. Are you mad? No, I said. I'm focused. She nodded like she understood the difference. After I watched her walk into the building, I drove downtown to a law office with a brass plaque that read estate planning. Within 20 minutes, I was sitting across from a woman named Valentina who wore glasses on a chain. She flipped through the documents I'd brought. You're the trustee, she said. And the trust has language limiting distributions to Mia's benefit, which is good. I nodded. My husband and his mother are trying to get me to sign a power of attorney that would let him access it. Valentina's eyebrows lifted. He can't access it without your cooperation unless you sign something that grants authority. I know, I said. That's why I'm here. I want to lock it down further. Valentina leaned back. We can add additional protections. No power of attorney can override trustee authority without court approval. I exhaled. Do it. Valentina explained each page. Mia's age, my late husband's intentions, previous amendments. I answered like a person reading a grocery list because staying calm was my only luxury. Valentina pointed to signature lines. These filings reinforce Mia's protected interest. If someone tries to present a power of attorney, it won't grant access to this trust. I'm also sending formal notice to the firm listed on that packet. Any attempt to use those documents gets flagged immediately. I picked up the pen. I signed. Not Carol's folder. Not Brian's plan. I signed what made my daughter untouchable. When I walked out, my phone buzzed 3 times. Brian. I didn't answer. I drove to Mia's school, checked her out early, and took her to a small diner with red booths. She ate fries like she hadn't eaten in days. Are we in trouble? She asked. No, I said. We're setting rules that actually work. She looked relieved, then worried again. Is Brian mad? I don't know, I said, but his feelings aren't the priority. Mia nodded slowly like she was practicing the idea. When we got home, Brian's car was in the driveway. Carol's was behind it. I walked Mia inside and said softly, go upstairs and change. If you hear voices, you stay in your room. Then I walked into the kitchen and found Brian and Carol at my table with the folder open like a weapon. Brian stood up. Where were you? I set my purse down. Out. Carol's eyes narrowed. Did you sign? I smiled a little. Not warm, just controlled. I signed. Brian's shoulders loosened. Good. Carol pushed the folder toward me. Then sign these too. I didn't touch it. Brian frowned. What do you mean you signed? I met his eyes. I mean I handled Mia's trust. Carol's face went still. What did you do? Brian stepped closer, voice rising. Hannah, you can't just make legal changes without telling me. I tilted my head. Watch me. Brian looked at Carol and said, Mom, maybe you should go. Carol whipped her head toward him. Excuse me? Brian's voice was shaky. Just go home for now. Carol stood so fast her chair scraped. You're choosing her over your own mother. Brian didn't answer. His jaw clenched and he looked at the floor. Carol grabbed her purse. Fine, but don't expect me to help you when this blows up. She walked out, slamming the door hard enough that the Christmas cards shifted. Brian turned to me. What did you do? I picked up my phone and showed him the confirmation from Valentina's office. Brian's face went pale. You locked it? I nodded. Yes. He swallowed. My mom is going to freak out. I said, let her. Brian stared at me like he was seeing me for the first time. You're going to ruin Christmas. I didn't raise my voice. You already did. Upstairs, the floor creaked. Mia had shifted in her room. I looked at Brian, still calm. We'll talk, but not with your mother here, and not while you're still pretending this was help. 7 days later, I was rinsing a mug when my phone rang. Unknown number. Is this Hannah? Yes. I'm an attorney with the firm listed on that power of attorney packet. I need to speak with Brian immediately. There's a serious problem with those documents. Brian's head snapped up. I held the phone out. He took it. His face changed. Confused, then worried, then scared. He pulled the phone away and stared at it. That was some attorney from the firm on Mom's paperwork. I leaned against the counter. Okay. Brian's voice was strained. He said they received notice. Something about the trust being protected and any POA being invalid for it. I didn't react. He should. Brian's hands started to shake. Hannah, why would they call me? Because someone tried to do something that triggered a legal response, I said. And they were sloppy. Brian's face flushed. My mom wouldn't. I cut in. Your mom brought papers to my house, told me she didn't care about Mia, and asked me to sign control away. Whatever she wouldn't do, she already did. Then his phone rang again. This time, I heard the other voice faintly. Fast, clipped, professional. Brian's shoulders slumped. Yes, I understand. He looked at me. I didn't. No, I did not tell my mother to forge anything. His eyes snapped to mine. Forge? The word hit the air like a dropped plate. He went quiet, listened, then said, Okay, I'll tell her. He hung up and stared at the floor. They think someone tried to falsify a signature on one of the forms tied to that packet, he whispered. I blinked slowly. On what? Brian's throat bobbed. On a beneficiary change or a distribution request. He wouldn't say much, just that they're withdrawing from representation and documenting everything. My voice stayed even. So the lawyer is backing away. Brian nodded. I walked to the stairs. Mia, you can come down now. Mia appeared at the top, pajama pants and a hoodie, hair half loose. It's okay, I said. Come sit with me. She came down and sat beside me on the couch. Brian stared at her. Mia didn't look at him. She looked at me. Are we safe? I nodded. Yes. The next morning, I got a call from Mia's school. This is the front office. Carol, your mother-in-law, came to pick Mia up. She's not on the approved list. We didn't release her. My hand tightened around the phone. Thank you. Please don't under any circumstances. The woman's voice stayed professional. She was upset. She said Brian gave her permission. I'm Mia's mother and legal guardian, I said. Not Brian, not Carol. When I hung up, I drove to the school and updated the pickup list in person, adding a password phrase Mia and I chose on the spot. Then I called Valentina. I need to document an attempted unauthorized school pickup. Valentina didn't sound surprised. Email me the details. Keep it factual. Carol wasn't just after money. She was after access. That evening, Brian came home alone. His face looked older. He stood in the doorway. Hannah, can we not do this in front of Mia? I glanced toward the living room where Mia was coloring. She already knows. You just haven't caught up. Brian's shoulders dropped. My mom said you're turning her into a weapon. Mia's head lifted, eyes sharp. I said, Mia is a person. Brian swallowed. Mom went to the school. I nodded. Yes. I walked to the drawer, pulled out the folder, and set it on the table. This is what help looks like in your family. Brian stared at it. Hannah. I held up my hand. No, listen. Your mom attempted to remove my child from her school without permission. That's not a misunderstanding. That's a boundary violation. Brian's voice cracked. She didn't mean. I cut in. Intent doesn't undo impact. Brian sank into a chair. The lawyer dropped her, he said quietly. He said he can't be involved if there's fraud. She forged something, Hannah. I think she forged my name. The room went silent. I said, did you know? Brian shook his head fast. No, I swear. She told me it was routine. I nodded once. That's what you told me. Brian flinched. I said, here's what's going to happen. You're going to stay somewhere else for now. Brian's mouth fell open. What? I kept my voice low. You can stay with your mom or a friend, but you're not sleeping here while you're still tied to her choices. Brian's hands gripped the table. Hannah, please. It's Christmas. I looked at Mia, then back at him. That's exactly why. Brian stood, paced once, then stopped. If I leave, you'll tell everyone. I'll tell the truth if I have to, I said. But I'm not running a smear campaign. I'm protecting my kid. Brian's eyes darted toward Mia. She stared at him with a look that wasn't anger. It was disappointment. Too old for 9. He whispered, I didn't think she'd go that far. I said, you didn't think because thinking would have required you to stop her. Brian walked to Mia, crouched in front of her. Hey, he said. I'm sorry. Mia's lips pressed together. Are you still on her side? Brian swallowed. I don't know how to do this. Mia nodded like that was the answer. Then you shouldn't be the one deciding stuff. Brian's eyes closed for a second. He stood, grabbed a bag, and left without another argument. The next day, Carol texted me. Hannah, honey, let's meet. We can fix this. Bring Mia to my house for Cocoa. I didn't respond. An hour later, she sent another. You're keeping my granddaughter from me. I stared at the word granddaughter. Carol had never called Mia that before. Not once. I typed one message. Do not contact Mia directly. Do not come to her school. Communication goes through me. Then I muted her. By afternoon, Brian's paycheck didn't go into our joint account. He'd opened a new account and redirected his deposit. He texted, Mom says you'll freeze me out. I need to protect myself. I replied, I'm not freezing you out. I'm separating what you already tried to take. Then I canceled every shared subscription. Streaming, cell plan, the family credit card. I didn't cancel to punish. I canceled to stop leakage. That evening, Brian showed up, eyes red. You canceled my card. I kept my voice steady. I canceled access to my credit. Brian's mouth opened. Mom said you'd do this. I nodded. Mom is right about one thing. I'm done being used. He stared at me. Where am I supposed to go? I didn't soften. That's for you to figure out. You had time to plan when you were planning behind my back. Brian flinched. Hannah, I love you. I looked at him for a long second. Love doesn't sound like she'll sign what we need. Brian's face crumpled. He looked past me where Mia stood halfway down the stairs. He whispered, Can I talk to her? I shook my head. Not tonight. Brian nodded slowly and walked away, shoulders hunched. He didn't slam the door. That was his smallest real step, accepting a boundary without breaking something. The next morning, my phone lit up with messages from Brian's family. Carol says you stole Brian's money. Carol says you're keeping Mia from her. I read them, took screenshots, and saved them in a folder. Then I wrote one message in the family group chat. Hi, everyone. Carol attempted to remove Mia from school on Friday without being authorized. Brian and Carol brought paperwork to my home attempting to gain control of Mia's trust. I met with an estate attorney and secured additional protections for Mia. For safety, Carol is not permitted to contact Mia directly or pick her up. Please do not relay messages to Mia. Thanks. Then I put my phone down. Within minutes, Carol replied in all caps. How dare you? You're lying. Then Brian's aunt. Carol, did you go to the school? Silence. Then Brian's cousin. Why would you try to pick up a child you're not authorized to pick up? More silence. Then Brian's brother. Mom, answer the question. Carol sent one more message. You're all turning on me because of her. And that was the moment her power shifted. Not because I attacked her. Because she had no calm facts to counter mine. By Monday, Brian came to the house with a small gift bag and a nervous expression. I brought Mia something, he said. I didn't move aside. Say what you need to say first. Brian swallowed. My mom told me to come here and get you to sign another thing. She said it'll fix it. I told her no. I held his gaze. You told her no. He nodded. I did. And I told her she can't go near Mia's school again. My throat tightened for half a second. Okay. He looked down at the gift bag. Can I give this to Mia? I stepped aside. 2 minutes. Living room only. Mia came in cautious and Brian handed her the bag. A small stuffed fox and a gift card to her favorite bookstore. Mia looked up at him. Did you tell Grandma she was wrong? Brian's eyes shone. Yes. Mia stared for a beat, then nodded once. Okay. That was all she gave him. Not forgiveness, not warmth, just acknowledgement of a step. On Christmas Eve, Mia and I started a new tradition. We drove through Cambridge to look at lights, got hot chocolate, and listened to a silly audiobook in the car. No big speeches, just safety wrapped in normal. When we got home, my phone buzzed once. A message from Carol sent from a new number. Merry Christmas. You can't keep him forever. I stared at it, then blocked the number. Mia looked up from the couch. Who was that? I didn't lie. Carol. Mia's shoulders tightened. What did she say? I chose calm honesty. She's unhappy. She can't control things. Mia nodded slowly, then went back to her book. That was the win. Not fireworks, not revenge, just a child returning to her own life. A week later, Brian met me at a coffee shop to talk logistics. He looked exhausted. I'm moving into a short-term rental, he said. I'm going to therapy and I signed something saying I won't pursue any claim to Mia's trust. I raised my eyebrows. You did that voluntarily? He nodded. Valentina sent it. I read it. I signed. I took a sip of coffee. Okay. Brian's eyes searched mine. Do you think we can ever fix this? I didn't rush to comfort him. I don't know, but Mia and I are safe now. That's the foundation. Everything else is optional. Brian nodded, swallowing hard, and for the first time, he didn't argue with the word optional. When I picked Mia up from school that afternoon, she ran to me with her backpack bouncing. Mom, guess what? I got invited to the art club. I smiled. That's amazing. She grabbed my hand. Can we celebrate with pizza? We can, I said. And we will. We walked to the car under a pale winter sun and the world felt steady again. Not perfect, not painless, but ours. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is sign your own name on your own terms.